Inside Scoop. I'm Rick Morelli. Well, the Hazleton City Water Authority has had some changes recently, and tonight we're going to have the new chairman of the board, John Keegan, speaking to you about some of the changes going on with the Water Authority. Here with me tonight is my co-host, Mike DeCosmo, and Dr. Dave Sosar could not make it here. And again, our guest tonight is John Keegan. John, good to see you.
Same here.
I appreciate you joining us, and congratulations on your new title of chair with the Water Authority. And again, we want to bring you on here to find out some of the changes and some of the new things that the public may see with the Water Authority. So why don't you start out and Phil, what do you foresee some of the changes?
First off, immediately, we are working on a new computer system operation-wide, and one of the things the ratepayers are going to notice immediately is a brand new bill coming out. A look to the bill, and it will include, ever since we agreed to the Master Services Agreement with the City of Hazleton, it will include the garbage and the water charges on a single bill.
Okay, and that bill, we have a picture of that. That's very important for the public to be able to see so that they don't throw that away.
Right.
So,
we will no longer be sending out the blue postcard and the red postcard as bills. They will be seeing a brand new document, hopefully next month.
Okay.
In February.
And you guys feel, and we've had some other gentlemen from the authority on our show before, and they talked about this will be a benefit to the authority of better collections to the city.
I believe it's going to be a benefit for everyone, including the ratepayers, because we are going to give them the ability to do online payments, payments by check, credit cards. So it's going to be a whole new way for them to be able to pay their bill, and in that process, we think it'll improve the rates of collection and cut down on the delinquents.
Okay. And before we get into some other things, I just want the public to know who makes up this board. Again, you've been on, but now you're the new chair. The new person on the board is Ed Shopey.
Yes.
He replaced Richie Amon, who was on the board for over 20 years.
Right.
You have Dr. Dave Sosar, who's on our show. He's been there. Phil Andrews, who's been there for close to 20 years, I think it's fair to say. And then Tim Farley, who's also new. So the board has really changed over the last number of years.
Right. The look of the board, you know, and we're trying to take a look at the entire operation and see what we can improve on what's there. I sent out an email through Randy Cahalan, our general manager, to the supervisors, asking them for their input on what they see the needs in their department and what could they bring to the board, because our budget will be coming up very shortly, and we want to make sure that we can try to include those items in the new budget.
Yeah.
Chairman John, congratulations. Good to be on. I even took a day out of tax season to appear on this one, knowing you were going to be on the show. But John, with the chairmanship, I mean, you've been on the board, I guess, about 2 years now. Obviously, like a lot of boards, you could see there was clearly a majority-minority faction before. Sure. I would say you were minority board director, now majority. New board sweeps clean. We have Ned McNeilis being reappointed solicitor, I would say, because he was a solicitor in the past. But Dick Gaiman was around for 20 years, and I know it's a double-edged sword, but when someone's on a board that long, obviously you're losing a lot of expertise, you know, by losing a board member like that. But I know there's a big push in a lot of areas of government for term limits. I mean, do you think, I mean, it's a good idea, bad idea to have fresh faces on a board like this?
I believe it is, simply because we aren't owners of the corporation, if you want to look at it in that vein. I personally, if I were to be reappointed, am self-imposing a two-term limit on myself. I agree with you that, you know, Rich was a great board member. I mean, there were things that he did in this last year that really helped the authority, and I want the public to know that. But by the same token, and all of us have been around long enough, no one leaves a board willingly usually. Okay, they like what they're doing, they want to continue what they're doing, but they forget that when they came on the board, they replaced someone else who didn't want to leave. So it's sort of like you said, a double-edged sword, and that's just the way it goes with any of these types of appointments. Again, I want to work with the entire board in trying to move the authority forward. I said a quote that government can't run like a business because business is in it to make profits. Governments are not, but there are business practices that governments should follow to ensure that there isn't waste and excessive expenses that get built into rates or taxes.
John, I think when it comes down to the public as to what their concerns are, it comes pretty much two basic principles. Is the water clean and safe, and what are the rates? And so what could you talk about when looking at those two things?
Well, first off, I don't know if Sam could catch this or not, but this is what one of our pipes looked like coming out of McKinley Street. And as you could see, it's not too good. We have 295 miles worth of pipe in our system. And something like this is what necessitates the need to revisit your infrastructure and do projects to upgrade. And that's what gets built into rates. As far as clean and safe water, that is a federal and state mandate. No matter whether it's a public entity or a private entity supplying the water, we must follow those federal guidelines and laws to ensure that that happens. But something like this goes to the efficiency of the system or the pressure that the people will have in their own home. And upgrades, many times you improve the pressure to those homes. And that's something that people care about, is how fast that water's coming out of the faucet as well.
Sure.
You know, so.
And not to put pressure though, any ideas? Well, we'll talk about the budget here in a minute, but any ideas about the rates, where you guys are going?
Sure. We had, in 1993 was when the plant and the administration were built, buildings were built, as well as a $20 million project to bring the piping into that central plant from the surrounding systems. There were two Penvest notes taken out at that time. One had a 20-year life and the other one has a 30-year. The 20-year has expired in December of 2011. So we have a bunch of infrastructure projects coming up, but we're trying to keep the cost of those projects within the payment that we were making on that 20-year note, which is already built into the rates, so that we don't have to raise rates. But our chemicals went up 18% this year. Our Blue Cross went up 28% this year. So things like that start to put pressure on the fact of how much we will have to charge. Yeah. I could tell you that we're going to look at operational efficiencies and try to get to a point where the last resort is a rate increase. You know, we don't put rate increases out there to make excessive profits. Rate increases, and with even public entities or private entities that are regulated by the PUC, when they go for a rate increase, they have to prove that they did X amount of infrastructure improvements to the system to justify the rate increase. Okay. So, you know, I'm going to ensure the public that we're going to look at that first before we just go out and willy-nilly raise rates, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's good to hear, John. Theoretically, any nonprofit organization in a perfect world would have a break even every year.
Exactly.
Which means you're not overcharging your customers and you're operating efficiently. And with the efficiency of operations, John, I know one of the things that, of course, first and foremost, the workers at the Water Authority, a lot of general public, someone like myself living in Hazel Township, you know, I mean, it's been worried about the stories have been out there that with the new majority, now the Water Authority is going to be up for sale. You know, how's it going to affect us? How's it going to affect the people who work for the authority? How's it going to affect ratepayers in a town like Hazel Township, where we're saying that, hey, listen, we might just end up seeing higher rates with the new company. We're just bailing Hazleton out for their poor financial management.
And I don't know if it's poor financial management. That one I'll take an issue on. But the real issue has been the political football of the word sale of the Hazleton City Authority. Since the 70s, that has been thrown out there, okay? I believe in the late 90s, it was thrown out there. The Hazleton City Authority is not for sale. That isn't the issue. Even when it was brought up most recently, it was an issue of money. Was it, do you raise the taxes an exorbitant amount, or do you sell it? And right now, we have a 15-year master services agreement with the City of Hazleton, and we are trying to make that work. And as I said last week, not only make it work, look if there's new ways that we can make it work so that the City of Hazleton benefits from it, and there is no need to sell it. The sale, I could say it equivocally, sale is not there, you know. Now, should it be taken off the table? That's another debate for another time. But there is no movement to sell the authority. As a matter of fact, even back when Lou Barletta, then as mayor, proposed it, his first words afterwards out of his mouth were hire an attorney and see if we could come to an agreement. Mm-hmm. So it was never really about selling the authority. It was how can an authority created by the City of Hazleton continue to help it, because that's the purpose of municipal authorities. They're created by the municipality that needs help. You know, we could go back to the history of the Hazleton City Authority. It wasn't created for water. It was created for the Duplin Building in 1938. We go back to the recession, or the Great Depression. They were coming out of it. They were saddled with the Duplin Building, and they didn't know how to market it. Mm-hmm. So in 35, the Municipal Authorities Act was passed, and they formed the Hazleton City Authority in 38 to manage and lease the Duplin Building. But the authority was also given general powers that it could institute or engage in other areas that were included in the Municipal Authorities Act. In 1943, the private water company, the Hazleton Water Company, which was a subsidiary of the Lehigh Valley Railroad Corporation, ultimately was purchased by the Hazleton City Authority with bonds issued back then. And that's how the Hazleton City Authority entered into the water business.
Yeah, and just 2 quick points before we head for break. Mm-hmm. You know, with the authority, John, number one, when the city sold the authority, the Duplin Building back in 1984, probably one of the biggest white elephants the city ever did get rid of, because someone on the city authority in the past, imagine a town like Hazleton converted from coal heat to oil heat, and that's when oil prices went crazy, and that's we were using to heat the Duplin Building, right. But we were spending more in oil at that time to heat the Duplin Building than we were collecting rents with the long-term leases we were in, which
right.
was just crazy. But
interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. John, I appreciate it. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to talk to you more about that master service agreement, if we could get into some detail. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Inside Scoop. We are here with the chairman of the Hazleton City Water Authority, John Keegan. Stay right there. Welcome back to Inside Scoop. We are here with John Keegan, chairman of the Hazleton City Water Authority. Or correct me if I just said that. You said that's not what it is. So
we were talking about that at the break. Everybody calls it the Hazleton Water Authority. It's the Hazleton City Authority.
So, but everyone talks and looks at it as with the water. But you were mentioning before that really, and again, you guys gave a history lesson before the break. But going back into it, you mentioned before the authority dealt with some other things.
Right. I was looking at 1954. Thomas Caparel was mayor of the city, and we had a traffic control division in the Hazleton City Authority. We had the water division, the industrial division, and a traffic control division. And it's just amazing how it's evolved, and it's always been a tool. I guess the message I'm trying to get out is it's always been a tool for the city to use when it needs whatever the particular needs are at that time.
And I think that's a great point, because again, even myself and most people out there look at it mostly for water, but the point is it really is a tool for the city. It can be utilized for other things.
Right. When you hear people talk about municipal authorities, they say they're independent entities, which they are. You know, the council can't come up to our board and tell us what to do. We can't go down to council and tell them what to do. But it doesn't mean that we still don't work in cooperation with the entity that created us.
Yeah.
And I think we have to keep that in mind.
And again, while you're talking about the cooperation, you mentioned before about the master service agreement that took place not too long ago. It's 15 years. Give everyone again a quick summary of what that is and how it's working.
Well, the master services agreement started January 1st of 2011, and it has several components to it. As you can imagine, with a water operation and terrorism, we're looking to the police for some extra protection. So we are paying the city, and I don't have the exact numbers here, but in total it comes up to we're giving them a check right now for $398,000. We're paying the city for police protection, for health and code enforcement, because we need that. At times there's, we go to a home and we need to get in there, and there may not be somebody there, or there, you know, so we need the health and code in on it. There's always been a timbering and a land lease, or a timbering agreement with the city. We've included the land that we've leased out now as well in that agreement to arrive at this $400,000 amount. In January of 2011, the other component of the agreement was for us to take over the garbage contract with Mascaro. And one of the reasons we did that was, you know, everybody complained the city wasn't going after the delinquents. Well, the city government and its form is a little bit different than municipal authorities. Municipal authorities have a lot more latitude than the city government. By us taking on the garbage contract and the collection of the fee, we are now able to shut off people's water if they don't pay either one. So it took that burden off, and I looked at some figures. In 2008, the delinquent garbage fees to the city were over $270,000. So that took that burden off their budget process, and we're right now we're collecting, even with the water shut off, we're at about an 87% collection, but we're improving every month.
And again, John, that's one of the complaints, I think, of so many people, whether you're talking about paying federal income taxes or paying garbage bills, that, you know, everyone else who is paying their fair share is paying more than their fair share for the people who aren't paying at all. So just the teeth that the city authority has and being able to go after, in most cases, they're deadbeats. Some people in this economy, I understand, do get behind in some of their bills, but most of these people are deliberately not paying their bills, I think you find.
Mike, the term I use is habituals. They habitually do not do it, and if you go check the real estate tax rolls, you check the sewer authority rolls, you check our rolls, you're going to find the same names on each one. You know, because they think that this is a way of doing business, and we want them to know that we don't feel it's right to raise rates on those who are paying to make up for those who aren't. So we've levied. One tool that we've recently brought on is we've levied properties that have gone up for sheriff's sale. And we are now getting money back from that, from the banks that buy them, to repay the fees that weren't paid. So we're trying to make a real aggressive effort to go after everyone and not make anyone feel comfortable that they can just ignore the bill, and we'll ignore it with them.
And I think the most frustrating thing to the public out there, to all of us, is when we're paying for something and others aren't. And then when the rates have to go up, you're paying for somebody else who's not doing that. And I think what you guys are doing is a good thing, because you're going after those people who either, if you want the service, you got to pay for it.
I try to tell people, I live in the city and I own a business in the city. I pay the fee twice. So believe me, I have, I'm well aware of that pain, and I want to be there as their representative in that voice and saying that we're not going to let you get away with it and take it out on someone else. I'll give you some figures that I've been touting up at the HCA. Hazleton's poverty rate right now is 16.7%. Among those over 65, it's 11.9%, and we have 25,000 people. So really, where is the extra affluent cash to pay any kind of increases?
Right.
So I try to keep that in mind when we are developing a budget and look at people's pocketbook, because I tell them, outside of my business, I'm on the other side of the counter just as they are. You know, making the purchases.
And you're 100% right. You know, sometimes people think that, well, an extra $10 or $20 doesn't matter, but it does to a large percentage.
Exactly.
Senior citizens got a raise of $40 for Social Security, and they're saying $40. I mean, when everything else is going up, it's like,
well, they get a raise, but the Medicare takes it away in the premium. You know, so I'm very mindful of that when we're looking at things, and that's why we want to, you know, up at the authority, we're going to rip apart every operation and try to see
Yep.
where we can make it more efficient.
Another topic, the splash park. I want to talk about, find out if you're for this, against it. I understand that the authority did borrow money. Is the money is it going to go to the splash park? Is it going to go to something else?
Well, I'm going to make a pitch to the board that we rescind the motion that purchased the equipment for the splash park. I believe this project was piecemealed, not in the sense of avoiding bidding requirements, but in the sense that it wasn't put together as a package first before it was brought to the board. We purchased the equipment for $142,000. We're out there now trying to bid the installation, which we don't know what those costs are, and there isn't a budget together to tell me what the ongoing costs of maintaining the splash park. We up in that immediate area, we've had a murder. We've had they vandalized our tank before.
It's about McKinley Street.
McKinley Street. There was a murder right there. There was they vandalized our tank before it was even fully constructed, and a lady directly across the street had a brick thrown through her window one night when there was I'm going to call it a mob activity. It was a mob of people through the street, and I don't think that this is in our. It's in the interest of the authority, first off, because we aren't in this park business, and I don't think we should belong there. And to have to borrow the money to be in the park business, again, gets back to rates. I don't think it's necessary for the people to have to pay for a park that's in one particular spot. It's system-wide. So I'm going to make the pitch. Whether I'm successful or not depends, but I'm going to make the pitch against it. And one of the other things that isn't considered is the liability. We lost the swimming pool in this town because of a lawsuit. I don't think the HCA should be exposing its operation to potential liability again. I believe if you go there and look at it, it is a very nice park as it is. We're putting up 2 security cameras. So I just think that we could use the money elsewhere in a better fashion.
Yeah, and it always comes down to money, John, and you've certainly presented yourself in a very defensible position. However, you know, we've had members of the Water Authority before. We've had our own Dr. Sosar say that a lot of the recent projects that the authority has taken on have also come about with thinking about the aesthetics of the community. They talk about the rails, the trails, and when they were talking about the splash park, they said that this is a section of town that possibly is getting a little run down. Maybe a splash park in that section could be a little regeneration, you know, a little comeback for that area. But you're saying, though, this is a rate that would go strictly on to the taxpayers and something we can't afford right now.
And I would also say, show me the study that proved that the splash park was necessary or would improve it. I think it's, you know, this is personal opinion, and I would prefer if I would have had a consultant in and tell me that this was the best use of land. I'll tell you, if you look at it, it's a big piece of property. It could have had more housing on it, you know, as well. So, you know, it's just difference of philosophy. I don't say that the doctor's wrong or the other members are wrong. It's just a difference of philosophy and looking at it.
Now, but you mentioned that they already borrowed the $142,000. So what will happen with that money?
They actually borrowed, I think, close to $400,000.
Okay.
So one of the things, again, and I'm just going to throw it out to the board, is that we take $30,000 of that and turn it over to the city to purchase cameras. They are in the park business. They have a recreation department. And one of the issues in this past election was the syringes, the drug activity, the gangs that were hanging around these parks. I want to give them the money to put up cameras so that these parks, the gang members and the drug dealers know, now we're going to be watching you, you know, and hopefully there'll even be enough money there that they could use roving cameras and put them in hot spots where there's criminal activity going on, and let them know that we're not going to
I will
tolerate
say,
it.
I personally do like the idea of cameras. I mean, let's be honest, we all see the crime, what's going on in the city, and I do think that cameras can help. And unfortunately, you are right. Parks are areas where people commingle and drug dealings go on. And, you know, if you're going to deter them to make sure that you can see them and police could utilize these cameras, I do think it's a good idea for cameras.
In Lackawanna County with that handicap park. It got vandalized the day it opened.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just, I want to take a little bit of a different approach. And again, it's a board vote. We'll see how the board.
And just the presence of cameras, John. I mean, I believe anytime you have them there, it serves as a deterrent.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, just people knowing that they're there. You know, anyone who's thinking of going there, if they're possibly going to be caught on camera, you know, think twice
I
about
don't think it's a bad idea for parks and adding parks to the area.
Right.
But I think your point is that you have so much money. Is it the best use? You do take a look at some of the parks in town. They're not in the best shape as they were years ago when we were around. So, you know, it's like
the
anything
mission
else.
of us to be in that business, and
Yeah.
that's the, you know, especially with sensitivity to rates.
Right.
Do we look at that, or do we look at something different?
Yeah.
You know, with the rest of the money, one of our new board members, Ed Shopey, brought up the fact that some of our materials are sitting out in the element, and maybe we can construct a building to protect those from the elements and make the operation a little bit more efficient for our workers who have to, in the wintertime, be out there shoveling snow and chipping ice to get a piece of pipe. I don't think that's right for them.
Right. Well, hopefully with this new board, there'll be some new ideas, some different ideas, and hopefully at the end of the day, it'll be for the best for the area. But we are out of time, and we wish you the best, and we want to thank you for coming here. I want to compliment you on that red shirt. If Dr. Dave Sosa was here, you know, he always talks about me wearing pink. He would definitely make a comment about that. Looks good. John, thanks again.
Thanks for the
Mike,
opportunity. I appreciate it.
always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us here on Inside Scoop. We'll see you next time. Have a great evening.